All right, let's dive into this. Love. You've given us a fascinating mix of sources here.
It is a lot.
Yeah, dictionary definitions, advice from celebrities like Stephen Speaks, Selena
Right.
Gomez, all from the Jay Shetty podcast.
Okay.
And even some insights
Yeah.
on narcissism from Dr. Romani, also from the Jay Shetty podcast.
Yeah.
It seems like you're really looking for a
Yeah.
complete understanding of love.
It does, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
seems like you're trying to understand, like, not just what love is, but also how to find it.
Right.
And then also how to kind of protect yourself from unhealthy relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a smart approach, I think.
Yeah. Let's jump right in with the dictionary
Oh.
definition of love. You'd think defining love would be simple, but dictionary.com
Right.
has like so many definitions.
A lot.
It's like everything from warm attachment to a score of 0 in tennis.
I think that speaks to how challenging it is to
Right.
like really capture love in words. Like a dictionary can give us this like basic framework,
Yeah.
but love really just goes beyond a single definition, you know?
Absolutely.
How we experience and express it is so unique to each person,
Yeah.
each relationship.
It's like trying to describe a color to someone who's never seen it, you know?
Exactly. And just like there's, different shades of a color, there are different shades of love. Think about like the love you have for a parent
Yeah.
compared to a romantic partner. Both are powerful,
Yeah.
but they just feel different.
For sure. So, dictionaries aside, let's hear from the people who have actually navigated this
Yes.
complex world of love
Yeah,
firsthand. In his interview with Jay Shetty, Stephen Speaks really emphasized the importance of self-knowledge
Okay.
before entering your relationship.
You're right.
He even uses the phrase, present your authentic self from the jump to avoid setting unrealistic expectations. What do you think about that?
Yeah. That's such a crucial point. And sometimes a difficult one, Stefan's like, if we don't understand ourselves,
Right.
how can we even understand what we need in a partner?
Right.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint.
Yeah.
You might end up with something that looks good, but doesn't actually function the way you need it to.
Yeah.
Have you taken the time
Right.
to figure out your own like blueprint, so to speak? Like, what are your values? What are your needs? What are your deal breakers?
That's such a good point. It makes you wonder how many of us just rush into these relationships without truly knowing ourselves,
Right.
and then wonder why things
Don't work out. And it's even more challenging because there's often this societal pressure to prioritize careers over self-discovery.
Yeah.
We're told to climb that ladder, get that success,
Yeah.
and then maybe think about love. But by then, we might have just spent years building this life that doesn't have room for a fulfilling relationship.
It's like putting the cart before the horse.
Totally. Yeah.
Stefan also brought up the impact of past traumas
Oh, yeah.
on our relationships. And he says that unhealed trauma can lead us to choose the wrong partners. He even compares it to walking around with broken glasses,
Okay.
unable to see clearly. What do you think he means by that?
So I think he's highlighting how unresolved emotional baggage
Right.
can really distort our perception of potential partners.
Okay.
We might be drawn to people who remind us of like past hurts, subconsciously trying to replay those patterns.
Yeah.
Or we might push away perfectly good partners because we're afraid of being hurt again.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like those broken glasses are like filtering our view of the world and making it hard to see people for who they truly are.
And this can create this like cycle of unhealthy relationships where we keep attracting the same type of partner, experiencing the same pain.
Right.
And we're just wondering why we can't find love that lasts, right?
Right.
But the answer could be within ourselves.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed patterns
Yeah.
in your own relationships?
It's definitely something to think about. It can be.
It's tough, yeah.
Tough to kind of face those past hurts, but doing so could be the key
Yeah,
to breaking those patterns and finding healthier love.
absolutely.
Stephen also makes a point of saying that love isn't always easy, but it's worth the work.
Okay.
And he draws this really interesting distinction between relationships that are hard because of incompatibility
Right.
and those that are hard because they're pushing us to grow. He argues that true love often requires us to face our fears and work through these past hurts.
That's powerful. It's so tempting to think that if a relationship's difficult, just like a sign that it's not meant to be.
Right.
But sometimes those challenges are actually opportunities for growth, both individually and as a couple. It's about figuring out, like, are we facing these challenges because we're fundamentally incompatible, or because we're being asked to, like, evolve and become better versions of ourselves? So it's like that saying, smooth seas don't make skillful sailors, right?
Exactly.
A little bit of turbulence might be necessary to really test the strength of a relationship and our own capacity for growth. Now, Selena Gomez, in her interview, was incredibly candid about the importance of vulnerability and authenticity and love. And she even said, I would rather continue to get my heart broken than not feel at all. What a powerful statement. It takes immense courage to be that vulnerable, She's acknowledging that true love comes with risk.
Right.
It means opening yourself up to the possibility of being hurt, even deeply hurt.
Yeah.
But she's also saying that the alternative, closing yourself off to love to avoid pain is not really living at all.
It's like choosing between existing in a bubble where you're safe but isolated, or venturing out into the world knowing you might get hurt, but also knowing that you'll experience the richness of life.
Yeah, and that choice to embrace that vulnerability, even when it's scary, is what allows for that true connection.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of the need for perfection and embracing our imperfections, both in ourselves and in our partners.
Yeah.
Selena also talked about the unique challenges of navigating love in the public eye, especially during her interview with her mom.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about how those external pressures could impact your own relationships?
I think it's easy to forget that even without the spotlight of fame, we're still influenced by societal expectations, family dynamics, even the opinions of friends.
Absolutely.
It's like we're all navigating these invisible currents that can either help or hinder our journey towards love.
Being aware of those currents is crucial. It allows us to understand how outside forces are kind of shaping our choices, and our behaviors in these relationships. It's about taking back the helm and steering your own course.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a little heavier. Dr. Ramani's insights on narcissistic relationships from the Jay Shetty podcast paint a pretty clear picture of how these relationships actually unfold. She describes this consistent pattern of love bombing, followed by devaluation, gaslighting, and a lack of empathy. It's almost like this textbook case.
Yeah, it is.
Of emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed these patterns in your own life or the lives of people you know?
That's a great question to ask yourself, and I think it speaks to how insidious these patterns can be.
Right.
Dr. Ramani points out that narcissists are often very skilled at targeting, like empathetic, giving individuals. They kind of prey on these qualities, using charm and affection to create this powerful sense of connection before, like, slowly chipping away at the victim's self-esteem.
It's almost like they create this dependency, making their partner feel like they need them while simultaneously making them doubt themselves and their own perceptions. Dr. Ramani goes on to describe the really devastating impact of this kind of abuse. Some common effects are things like rumination, anxiety, self-doubt, and even physical symptoms, like sleep disturbances.
It's important to remember that emotional abuse can be just as damaging as physical abuse and can leave deep wounds that take time and effort to heal. The key, as Dr. Ramani emphasizes, is to recognize that healing is possible. It's about reclaiming that sense of worth, rebuilding your self-trust, and understanding that you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness.
That's a really important message of hope for anyone who's experienced this type of abuse.
Absolutely. Dr. Ramani offers some really practical advice for healing, and one of the key concepts she emphasizes is radical acceptance. Now, this isn't about condoning the narcissist's behavior, but rather about acknowledging the reality that it's unlikely to change. It's about releasing yourself from the burden of trying to, like, fix them or change them.
It's about recognizing that sometimes the healthiest choice is to just step away from the situation and focus on your own well-being.
Yeah.
It can be tough to accept that someone we love is incapable of giving us the love and respect that we deserve, but sometimes that acceptance is the first step towards freedom and healing.
And once you've accepted that reality, you can start focusing your energy on what you can control, right? Your own healing and well-being. And a crucial part of that, as Dr. Ramani explains, is setting firm boundaries to protect yourself from further harm. What boundaries do you need to establish to prioritize your mental and emotional health?
That's such a powerful question. And it's not just for people who experience narcissistic abuse.
No, of course not.
Boundaries are essential for any healthy relationship, romantic or otherwise. They're about defining what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior and projecting our own space and energy.
Exactly. Boundaries are about respecting ourselves and our needs. And when we have healthy boundaries in place, we're better equipped to create these relationships that are based on mutual respect, trust, and understanding.
Now, let's shift gears again and focus on the positive aspects of love. In his video on Finding Love, Jay Shetty highlights the importance of looking for certain key attributes in a partner. And he emphasizes things like mutual respect, shared values, and a willingness to grow together.
Those are all fantastic qualities to look for in a partner, but it's also important to think about what deeper compatibility looks like for you. What qualities truly matter in a long-term partner beyond the superficial, right? Are you looking for someone who shares your sense of humor, your intellectual curiosity, your passion for adventure, things like that?
Those deeper connections are often what makes a relationship truly special and impacting.
And it's not just about finding the right person. It's about being the right person, too.
Totally.
We can't expect to find a partner who embodies all these wonderful qualities if we're not willing to cultivate them in ourselves.
It's about recognizing that we attract what we are, not what we want.
Absolutely.
If we're looking for kindness, compassion, understanding in a partner, we need to be embodying those qualities in our own lives.
And Matthew Hussey, in his interview on the Tom Bilyeu podcast, also touched on this idea of personal growth within relationships. And he talked about the need to constantly challenge ourselves to become better versions of ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient.
It's easy to get complacent in a relationship and fall into routines and just kind of lose sight of our own growth. But what Matthew's saying is that willingness to confront our own shortcomings and actively work on becoming better is crucial for a thriving relationship.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that love isn't a destination. It's a journey, a journey that requires us to be active participants, showing up every day with a willingness to learn, grow, and evolve.
One of the things that really stuck with me from Matthew's interview was his emphasis on understanding our partner's needs and being able to meet those needs in a way that feels genuinely loving and supportive. And he talked about the importance of deep listening, not just hearing what your partner is saying, but truly understanding the underlying emotions and needs driving their words and actions.
That goes back to what we were discussing earlier about communication, right? Not just about talking. It's about truly understanding and being understood. And that requires a willingness to step outside of our own perspective and try to see the world through our partner's eyes.
To put ourselves in their shoes, to empathize with their feelings, and try to meet them where they are, even if we don't fully agree with their perspective.
And this can be incredibly challenging, especially when we're like feeling hurt or frustrated or misunderstood ourselves. But when we make the effort to truly listen to our partner, validate their feelings, and try to understand their needs, it creates this powerful sense of connection and intimacy. Have you ever felt that shift in a conversation?
Oh, absolutely. Where you go from feeling defensive to feeling truly heard and understood.
It's amazing, right? How quickly a conversation can change when both people are willing to really listen and empathize.
And that ability to connect on a deeper level is crucial, especially when conflicts arise. Matthew emphasized that we should view disagreements not as battles to be won, but as opportunities to learn and grow together.
It's about shifting our perspective from me versus you to us versus the problem. It's about recognizing that you're on the same team, working together to find a solution that works for both of you.
And that requires a willingness to compromise, to negotiate, and to sometimes let go of our own need to be right.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately the goal is not to win an argument, but to strengthen the relationship. Have you ever had a disagreement with a loved one?
All the time.
Where you realized that being right just wasn't as important as finding a solution that worked for both of you?
I think we've all been there. Sometimes it's like more important to preserve the relationship than to win the argument.
And that's where communication comes in again. It's about being able to express our needs and feelings clearly and respectfully, while also being open to hearing and understanding our partner's perspective.
It's about finding that balance between assertiveness and empathy, you know? Between standing up for yourself while also honoring your partner's needs.
Matthew also touched on the idea of emotional bids. He explained that throughout the day, our partners are constantly making these little bids for our attention, connection, affection. It could be something as simple as a smile, a touch, a shared joke, a question about our day. It's easy to miss those little bids.
It is.
Especially when we're busy or preoccupied.
And how we respond to those bids can have a significant impact on the health and happiness of our relationships. When we consistently turn toward our partner's bids, we're essentially saying, I see you, I hear you, and I care about you. It's like making a deposit into the emotional bank account of the relationship.
But when we consistently turn away from those bids, whether it's through disinterest, distraction, or outright rejection, it's like making a withdrawal in that account. And over time, those withdrawals can leave the relationship feeling emotionally bankrupt.
That's such a powerful way to put it. It highlights the importance of being mindful of how we respond to our partner's bids, even in the midst of a busy day or when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. What are some ways that you try to respond to those emotional bids, even when life gets hectic?
I think it's about making a conscious effort to turn towards my partner. Acknowledge their bid for connection and show them that I care. It doesn't have to be this grand gesture, even a simple smile. Or a moment of focused attention can make a big difference.
And those small gestures accumulated over time can weave a tapestry of love and connection that can withstand those inevitable storms that life throws our way. You know?
It's about remembering that love is not just a feeling, it's a verb.
It is.
It's something we actively do, not something that just happens to us.
And when we approach our relationships with that kind of intentionality, we create a space where love can truly flourish.
I love that. Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting. We've gone from dictionaries to deep emotional work in just a few minutes.
That's the beauty of a deep dive. We're really getting into like the nitty gritty of love here. Like I feel like there's still so much more.
Oh, absolutely. One area we haven't even touched on yet is communication. And I'm not just talking about saying I love you more often.
Although there's nothing wrong with a little extra love talk.
Right, of course not. But I get what you mean. There's a whole other like deeper level to communication in these relationships.
For sure.
Communication is the bedrock of any successful relationship. It's how we express our needs, share our feelings, work through conflict, and ultimately build intimacy.
So it's not just about talking. It's about truly understanding and being understood.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about actively listening, paying attention not just to the words, but also to the emotions and the intentions behind them. Think about it. Have you ever felt like someone was like hearing you, but not really listening? Like they were missing the point entirely.
Oh, all the time. It's so frustrating when you feel like you're not being heard, especially by someone you care about.
And that's why effective communication is so vital. It's about going like beyond the surface level.
Yeah.
Really trying to understand the other person's perspective, even if it's different from our own.
Yeah.
And it's about being willing to be vulnerable, to share our own thoughts and feelings authentically, even when it's scary.
Because let's face it, sometimes those conversations can be tough, especially when we have to address difficult emotions or potentially hurt someone's feelings.
Absolutely. There will be times when those conversations are challenging.
Right.
But think about it this way. Those challenging conversations are often the ones that lead to the most growth and connection. When we're able to express ourselves honestly and openly, and we feel truly heard and understood by our partner, it creates this amazing sense of safety and intimacy.
It's like building a bridge between two people, allowing their hearts and minds to truly connect.
Exactly. And just like any bridge, it needs a solid foundation. And that foundation in a relationship is built on trust, respect, and a willingness to work through those disagreements constructively.
So communication isn't about winning an argument or proving a point, but rather about finding common ground, understanding each other's perspectives, and ultimately strengthening the bond between you.
You nailed it. It's about recognizing that you're on the same team, working together to create a relationship that's both fulfilling and sustainable.
Speaking of sustainability, we have to talk about the importance of maintaining individuality within a relationship.
Yeah, big one.
It's something that
it's tough.
I think a lot of people struggle with, especially when love is new and exciting.
Oh, it's so easy to get swept up in that whirlwind of romance and forget that we're still two separate individuals with our own needs and desires and dreams.
It's like that phase where you just want to spend every waking moment together. And you kind of
lose yourself
in the process.
Been there. We've all been there. And while it's beautiful to share experiences and create a life together, it's also crucial to nurture our own individuality, to keep those passions and interests that make us unique, alive and thriving.
It's about remembering that we're not just half of a whole, but two whole individuals choosing to. Walk side by side.
Because when we lose sight of ourselves in a relationship, we risk becoming dependent on our partner for our sense of happiness and fulfillment.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
You need to fill your own cup first.
Right.
With self-love, self-care, and the things that bring you joy before we can truly give to another.
And when both partners are committed to their own growth and well-being, it creates this dynamic where the relationship becomes a source of mutual support and inspiration rather than a crutch or a burden. Have you ever been in a relationship where...
Oh, yeah. You felt like you were holding each other back.
Okay.
Or maybe not fully supporting each other's passions.
It's not a good feeling when you feel like your relationship is stifling your growth instead of encouraging it. So that's why it's so important to find that balance between togetherness and individuality. It's not about merging into one amorphous blob. It's about dancing together as two individuals, each with their own rhythm, yet moving in harmony.
I love that analogy. And that dance requires communication, flexibility, a willingness to adapt and evolve.
Absolutely, because just like our individual needs and desires change over time, so too does the nature of our relationships. It's about recognizing that love is not static. It's a living, breathing entity that requires constant nurturing.
And attention.
Like a garden that needs to be tended to, weeded and watered
and sometimes
in order to flourish.
That means making tough choices, having difficult conversations, and being willing to let go of what's no longer serving us, both individually and as a couple. Because ultimately the goal is not just to stay together, but to create a relationship that is truly enriching, supportive, and allows both partners to thrive.
So how do we practically apply this idea of maintaining individuality within a relationship? Are there any
great question.
Specific steps we can take?
One simple but effective strategy is to schedule regular me time. into your week.
Right.
What would you consider quality me time
For me, me time could be anything from like an hour spent reading a book
Okay.
to a weekend getaway.
Right. With friends.
Yeah.
The key is to just like carve out that time for myself to reconnect with my own passions and interests without feeling guilty or obligated to include my partner
Of course.
in everything I do.
And it's just as important to encourage your partner to do the same. Remember, their individuality is just as important as yours.
Right.
Another helpful tip is to continue pursuing those hobbies and interests that brought you joy before you entered the relationship.
It's about remembering who you are, independent of your partner, and keeping those passions alive.
And who knows, maybe your partner will even discover a newfound interest in something you're passionate about.
Right.
It could be an opportunity to like learn and grow together.
Totally.
While still honoring those individual interests.
Now, circling back to Jay Shetty's video on finding love, he talks about the importance of looking for mutual respect, shared values, willingness to grow together in a partner. But as we discussed earlier, it's also crucial to consider that deeper compatibility. What are some of those like deeper, less obvious qualities that you think are important to look for in a partner?
Those deeper connections, the ones that go beyond like shared interests and surface level compatibility are what make a relationship truly special. Things like a shared sense of humor, similar communication styles, willingness to support each other's dreams, no matter how big or small. You know, it's about finding someone who truly gets you.
Right.
Flaws and all.
It's about finding someone who celebrates your quirks as much as they admire your strength.
Exactly. And it's not just about finding the right person. It's also about being the right person. We can't expect to find a partner who embodies all these wonderful qualities if we're not willing to cultivate them in ourselves.
It's about recognizing we attract what we are.
Absolutely.
Not what we want.
Right.
If we're looking for kindness, compassion, understanding in a partner, we need to be embodying those qualities in our own lives.
And Matthew Hussey, in his interview on the Tom Bellew podcast, also touched on this idea of personal growth within relationships. And he talked about the need to constantly challenge ourselves, to become better versions of ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient.
It's easy to get complacent.
It is,
in a relationship, to fall into routines and lose sight of our own growth. But what Matthew's saying is that willingness to confront our own shortcomings and actively work on becoming better is crucial for a thriving relationship.
It's about recognizing that love is not a destination, but a journey.
A journey that requires us to be active participants, showing up every day with a willingness to learn, grow, and evolve.
Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from the dictionary definition of love to the complexities of narcissistic relationships to the importance of communication and maintaining individuality.
It's amazing how many layers there are to love. You know? And you've really explored those layers thoughtfully.
Thanks.
Asking some really great questions along the way.
Well, I feel like I've learned so much. But I also know there's still more to uncover. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. There's always another one underneath.
And that's the beauty of love, isn't it? It's this endless source of like fascination and discovery. And speaking of discoveries, there are two more crucial elements I think we need to discuss before we wrap up.
This deep dive. And that's forgiveness and gratitude.
Okay, forgiveness is a powerful concept, but it can be so difficult to put into practice, especially
for sure,
when we've been deeply hurt by someone we love.
It's true. Forgiveness isn't about like condoning hurtful behavior or saying that what happened was okay. It's about releasing the anger, the resentment, the pain that we hold on to so we can move forward.
It's about freeing ourselves
exactly
from the weight of that negativity.
But let's be honest, it's easier said than done.
Way easier.
Right. So like, how do we even begin to forgive someone who's hurt us deeply, especially when those wounds are still fresh?
It's a process, not a switch.
Totally.
We can just flip on and off.
No.
And it often requires a lot of like inner work, self-reflection, and sometimes even like professional guidance. Have you ever struggled with forgiveness in your own life?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think most of us have been in situations where we felt like wronged or betrayed by someone we care about. And in those moments, forgiveness can feel impossible, you know?
For sure.
And that's okay. It's important to acknowledge those feelings of hurt and anger. They're valid, you know? But holding on to those feelings